For the first time in centuries, researchers have uncovered what's believed to be Jesus' tomb inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre.
Beneath the floor, where millions have prayed for centuries, a sealed space has finally been opened. Scientists expected nothing more than cold stone and ancient dust, but when they lowered their instruments beneath Jesus' tomb, they found something no one was prepared for. Hidden layers of soil, traces of a forgotten garden, and structures that seemed completely out of place. Experts now believe these clues were deliberately covered up by builders from long ago, for reasons still unknown. And what these new findings suggest has left researchers stunned, because this buried world was never meant to be uncovered. The moment scientists began examining the space beneath Jesus' tomb, they realized something was wrong. The ground didn't behave the way ancient stone should. Their scanners picked up strange pockets of softer material, almost like the earth was holding its breath. When they finally reached these hidden layers, the first samples shocked everyone. Instead of the dry, lifeless dust they expected, the soil showed signs of something far more unusual, something that shouldn't have survived for 2,000 years. Tiny traces of plants, olive, grape, and faint hints of pollen suggested that this sacred site once sat inside a living, cultivated space, a garden. But why would a garden exist here, buried beneath layers of rock and construction? And who covered it? As they dug deeper, the team found marks of ancient tools carved into the stone, shaping a space that didn't match later building plans. It looked older, much older, like a forgotten world sealed away under the shrine. And just when the scientists thought they understood the pattern forming beneath their feet, a new reading appeared on their instruments, one that didn't fit any explanation they had. Something else was hiding below. The new reading flickered across the screen, a sharp, uneven shape deep beneath the garden layer. At first, the team thought it was an error, but when they rescanned the area, the outline grew clearer. A cut in the stone, narrow and deliberate, almost like an entrance. Yet no records, no maps, and no ancient drawings showed anything in that spot. Whatever this structure was, it had been hidden long before the great church rose above it. The scientists moved carefully, brushing away centuries of compacted soil until the edge of the stone feature finally appeared. It wasn't natural. Someone carved it by hand. What puzzled them more even was the direction of the cut. It pointed toward an area believed to have been part of an early quarry, but the markings didn't match quarry tools. These lines were smoother, more precise, almost ceremonial. And as the team followed the shape, they noticed small fragments embedded nearby, traces of worked marble, bits of older construction, and faint discoloration in the soil that hinted at fire or burning. Something significant happened here, something no one wrote down. And the deeper they followed the line, the stranger the discoveries became. As the team traced the smooth cuts in the stone, they found themselves facing a puzzle that didn't match any known phase of the site's history. According to ancient accounts, this area should have been a rough quarry floor, simple, uneven, and unremarkable. But what they uncovered next shattered that expectation. Beneath a thin layer of mixed soil lay a carefully leveled surface, flattened with a precision that suggested intention, not chance. It was as if someone had prepared this hidden floor for a purpose and then covered it as quickly as they created it. Mixed into the soil above it were small patches of darker earth, organic rich, almost like compost. These samples showed the same plant traces from higher layers: olive, grape, and other vegetation no one expected to find underground. It was becoming clear that this wasn't just random debris from an ancient garden. This soil seemed transported, placed directly over the leveled surface. But why move garden earth into a sealed, hidden chamber, and why bury it beneath later construction? What unsettled the team most was a thin trail of fine dust stretching across the stone floor. Dust that didn't match any local material. It came from somewhere else entirely. The strange dust lay in a delicate line, as if it had been placed there intentionally, too thin to be rubble, too clean to be random. When the scientists collected a sample, the early test surprised them. The material didn't match the limestone of the tomb, the garden soil above it, or even the surrounding quarry rock. It was foreign, brought in from a different layer, maybe even a different location entirely. But the question was, why would anyone carry this specific material into a space that wasn't meant to be seen? As they followed the faint trail, it led them toward a small depression in the floor. At first glance, it looked like a natural dip in the stone. But when the team cleared the surface more carefully, they uncovered a shallow carved recess, precisely shaped, almost like the base of a structure that had once stood there. Embedded around the edges were tiny fragments of ancient mortar, the kind used in early monuments long before the later Byzantine walls were built. This recess didn't belong to the construction phases recorded in any historical plans. It hinted at something older, something deliberately removed. And the marks around it suggested it wasn't taken gently.
The carved recess raised a troubling possibility. Whatever once stood here had been lifted out, piece by piece, leaving only the marks of its removal behind. The team noticed deep scratches along the edge, signs of tools forcing something loose. But the angle of the marks didn't match normal demolition. It looked rushed, almost desperate, as if whoever removed the structure needed it gone quickly and didn't care about the scars they left. Even stranger, the mortar fragments around the base were older than the layers above, hinting that this object was part of an early phase long forgotten by later builders. As the scientists studied the recess, they found something small wedged into a narrow corner, a tiny flake of polished stone, smooth, curved, and shaped by human hands. It didn't match the local materials or the limestone tomb. It felt like a piece of an ornamental object, something made to be seen, not buried. But why hide something ornamental beneath layers of garden soil and stone? And if it was removed, where did it go? Just as they recorded the find, new scans lit up an area directly beneath the recess, an area no one realized existed. Something was hidden underneath it, too. The new scans revealed a hollow space, small, tight, and buried deeper than anyone expected. At first, the team thought it might be a natural pocket in the stone, but the outline was too clean, too geometric. Someone had carved this chamber intentionally, then sealed it beneath the earlier structure. The scientists began clearing the area millimeter by millimeter, careful not to disturb whatever might still be inside. As they chipped away at the compacted soil, the chamber's entrance slowly appeared. A narrow slit cut into the stone, barely wide enough for a hand. It was a hidden cavity, not meant for daily use, more like a hiding place. Inside, the air felt colder, heavier, as if it had been trapped for centuries. The first thing they saw was dust, fine, pale, the same foreign dust they had found earlier. But beneath it, they noticed shapes in the darkness, smooth lines, angles, the edges of something crafted. One of the researchers reached in with a gloved hand, brushing the dust away. A small, unexpected object emerged from the shadows, its surface too refined to be random debris, and its presence made no sense at all. The object was no larger than a closed fist, yet its detail was unmistakable. Smooth curves met sharp edges, forming a shape that didn't match any tool, vessel, or decorative piece known from the site. Its material felt denser than limestone, heavier than marble. When the team placed it under a portable light, faint markings glimmered across its surface. Not letters, not symbols, more like patterns, carefully etched, worn by time but still deliberate. Whatever this was, someone crafted it with intention, and someone hid it beneath the recess long before later builders covered everything above. But this discovery came with an unsettling question. Why hide such a precise object in a place where no one could ever retrieve it? The deeper the scientists studied it, the more it became clear that this wasn't meant to be found by chance. The chamber around it seemed constructed specifically to protect it, or conceal it. When they tested the surrounding soil, they noticed something else. The earth inside the cavity was different, older, undisturbed. It suggested the object had been placed there before the upper layers were built, possibly even before the earliest known phases of the tomb complex. And the chamber wasn't empty. Behind the first object, another shape waited in the dark. The second shape was larger, flatter, and covered in a thicker layer of dust. When the scientists slid it gently from the chamber, a thin sheet of stone appeared, polished on one side, rough on the other, like a fragment of a larger slab. But it wasn't the stone itself that caught their attention. It was the faint discoloration along its surface. Under the light, the team saw streaks, lines that formed a pattern too organized to be natural. Not writing, not artwork, but something like a boundary, maybe a marking meant to fit against another piece. It looked as if this slab had once connected to something greater, something now missing. Even stranger, the polished surface showed signs of purposeful wear, as if countless hands had touched it before it was sealed away. Yet no fingerprints, no carvings, no clear message remained, just the quiet echo of use. As they studied the fragment, the chamber's purpose grew more confusing. Why hide fragments instead of whole objects? Why bury them beneath a structure that had itself been removed? Then one of the researchers noticed a small gap behind the slab, a shadowed corner in the chamber wall. It looked like the entrance to another cavity, a deeper one.
When the team widened the narrow gap, a rush of colder air drifted out, air that hadn't moved in centuries. This deeper cavity was even smaller than the first, almost impossible to notice
without careful scanning. But once the light reached inside, something unexpected reflected back. It wasn't stone, it wasn't soil. It was a thin shimmer, like metal dulled by time. The researchers reached in carefully, brushing away layers of ancient dust until the object revealed itself, a narrow strip, curved slightly, with tiny impressions along its edge. It was too small to be a tool and too plain to be jewelry, yet its craftsmanship was undeniably deliberate. Tests showed it wasn't typical bronze or iron. It contained trace elements not common to the region, materials more often found in objects carried long distances or reserved for special purposes. That raised a new question. What was something so unusual doing in a sealed chamber under the tomb? As they examined it, they realized the impressions on its edge matched the faint markings on the stone slab found earlier, almost like the two pieces were designed to connect or unlock something together. But the chamber held one more secret, resting at the very back, wrapped in darkness. At the far end of the cavity, barely visible through the dust, lay a final object, one so fragile the team hesitated before touching it. When the light struck it directly, the outline became clear. A small bundle, hardened by age, wrapped in what looked like layers of mineralized cloth. It didn't resemble any relic or artifact ever recorded beneath the Holy Sepulchre. The bundle seemed intentionally shaped, folded with care, as if protecting something inside. With delicate tools, the researchers loosened the soil around it, revealing thin fibers woven in a pattern older than the layers above. Whoever placed this here did so with purpose. But what truly stunned the team was the weight. For its size, the bundle felt heavier than it should, far heavier. Something dense rested at its core. They scanned it gently, expecting simple stone or debris. Instead, their instruments detected conflicting signals, metal, mineral, organic traces, all intertwined in a way that made no immediate sense. The chamber had been built to hide something, and this bundle was clearly the key. But before they could open it, before they could even record the final scans, the reading shifted again. Something else was waking beneath the tomb.